Hi, I'm Michele Arquette-Palermo. I'm the head of the Freshwater Forum at Cranbrook Institute of Science. Thank you very much for joining me on some more backyard adventures. Today I thought we'd take a walk over to Camp Agawam, possibly find some mushrooms with a couple days of rain, a little bit of warm weather. I'm not very hopeful though. We might need to wait a couple more days. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about the Clinton River Watershed and also some of the impacts that humans have, including the transportation of invasive species. Orion Township is part of the Clinton River Watershed. No matter where you live in a watershed. So Camp Agawam, right around the corner from my house, is right in part of the Clinton River watershed. Tommy's Lake is connected to a whole chain of lakes that empty into the Clinton River. So just upstream of us, we have Elkhorn Lake. Downstream, we have Round Lake, eventually Lake 16, Voorhees Lake, and then Sashbaugh Creek, and then down into the Clinton River. The Clinton River travels from Independence Township all the way to Lake St. Clair. The watershed and all the area that drains into that watershed is 760 square miles and home to 1.5 million people. Everything that we do outside has an impact on the quality of the water, whether it's Tommy's Lake or the Clinton River, Sashbaugh Creek, or Lake St. Clair. There are a number of different things that humans do that impact the water. One of them is transporting something that we call invasive species. Our plants or animals from other places that come to a new area and aggressively take over. So in Camp Agawam and other natural places, you're going to find some non-native species. One such example is something we call buckthorn. And the one thing about a buckthorn is nothing else grows under a buckthorn except for another buckthorn. Mostly. I did find one that is not an invasive species, but what we would call a nuisance species, and that is poison ivy. And it's just now starting to come up, and you can see the leaves are very red and kind of waxy, and there are groups of 3. One really good saying that us naturalists have is, leaves of 3, let it be. And as we walk today, we'll look and see if we can find some lookalikes. So there are a number of different species in Michigan that look very similar to poison ivy. What a lot of people don't realize is that poison ivy grows low to the ground, like the one that we saw already, but it also grows as a vine up trees in the southern part of the state of Michigan, and of course in states south of us as well. So one of the species that is often mistaken for poison ivy is actually another species called Virginia creeper. And if you look at the leaves here, you can notice very shiny, waxy, much like the poison ivy that we saw, and a little bit of red tinge to it. But note, there are 5 leaves on the Virginia creeper vine, so they're different. And the vines themselves look very different from the poison ivy vine. Hopefully we'll be able to find some poison ivy vine while we're out here today so you can see the difference. Another plant that is all throughout this wooded area here at Camp Agawam is Oriental bittersweet, which is another invasive species. And if you look here, you can see the Oriental bittersweet vine. Very thick, and these will grow and over time get bigger and send out more vines, and eventually they will strangle this tree and pull that tree down. So in a lot of natural areas in southeast Michigan have a problem with the Oriental bittersweet. One of the other species that you find in Michigan, invasive species, is Multiflora Rose. And there is a lot of Multiflora Rose here in this natural area. And it looks very much like the rose bushes that you have in your yard. But as you can see, it kind of grows and overtakes this whole area, and you don't see any other species growing underneath it. So again, an invasive species is from another area, and it comes in and takes over, and it's very aggressive. And you can see the evidence of that with the case of the Multiflora Rose. We found the vine version of poison ivy. You can see it growing up the trunk of these two trees. Again, notice the leaves are a little waxy, a little bit red, but there are 3 leaves, and again, 3 leaves, let it be. Not everybody is allergic to poison ivy. In fact, about 60% of the population is allergic to the oils inside the plant. It might be in the roots, it could be in the leaves, it can be in the berries. So you may or may not be allergic to it. Myself, I don't know, but I don't ever want to test it. Typically, if you find one invasive species, you tend to find more because they like disturbed areas. So I found another one out here, and this is what we call garlic mustard. You can see the telltale white flower here, but if you tear off a leaf and smell it, it smells just like garlic. I have kids tell me all the time it smells like chicken. So it is usually in woody areas with sunshine, and it's very easily removed. A lot of conservation groups have garlic mustard pulls this time of the year because that's the most effective way to combat this species, is to pull it out of the ground. You'll see this all over throughout Oakland County. One of the invasive species that we've had problems with here in Orion Township is Phragmites. The connection between these 2 lakes, Elkhorn and Tommy's Lake, was getting clogged with the Phragmites. So township officials decided to start managing this invasive species, and we are successful. We now have water flowing between the 2 bodies of water as it should naturally. Well, unfortunately, we didn't find any morel mushrooms again today, but I hope everybody learned a little bit about invasive species, and thank you very much for joining me.